Okay, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachah HaKodash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the hopeful elect. So they have this article is titled "Why States Are Right to Reject AI Legal Personhood," right? And what the article is basically going into is how you have states, pretty much fighting against, making AIs pretty much their own person, because effectively what that does is make pretty much the actions that these AIs take and the things that they do, no one becomes responsible for it, because it's its own legal person, and which you can see where that things like that leads to. Because then if this thing starts killing people, right, who's responsible? No one. You cannot, lay the charge to the AI. It's it's technology, right? So you have states fighting against that. And also have another article that, as we read, we'll see how these two, tie together, and also how they tie into prophecy. And they're both fairly short, right? So jump right into it. It says, authored by Siri Turgison and Michael Ryle via the Epoch Times, a quiet but consequential legal movement is gathering momentum. Idaho and Utah have enacted statutes declaring that artificial intelligence systems are not legal persons. And that should go without saying. It's literally not, right? But you're going to see a reason why they give to as why they can be argued. Ohio's House Bill 469 proposes to declare that AI systems are non-sentient entities and bars them from acquiring any form of legal personhood. Similar bills are advancing in Pennsylvania, Oklahoma, Missouri, South Carolina, and Washington. The legislatures driving this movement are not technophobes. They are drawing a necessary line that philosophy, law, and common sense all demand, right? Because trying to give essentially something with no spirit, right, something with no conscience, the right to pretty much act as its own person, that's clearly a dumb idea, right? That just goes without saying. Something that doesn't have feeling, can't think for itself, things like that. The pressure in the opposite direction is real. In January, at the World Economic Forum in Davos, historian Yuval Noah Harari, that devil, described AI as mastering language. Since language is the medium through which law, religion, finance, and culture are constituted, AI may soon, and you see how it shows you what these devils really think when it comes to religion as a whole. They just lump it in with everything else. Because religion or faith and so on and so forth is not valued in this society. Because realistically speaking, real religion, right, a real God, that is supposed to be above all things, but here it is, these devils, they just lump it in as, language, words, and AI can master language, but since language is the medium through which law, religion, finance, and culture are constituted, AI may soon be capable of acting within every institution humans have built. Harari asked whether countries would recognize AI as legal persons, whether AI could open bank accounts, file lawsuits, and own property without human supervision. The prospect is not science fiction, it is a policy choice, and the wrong choice would be deeply consequential. And that's ultimately the world that these devils want to build up to. Phantasms versus nous, or nous, I believe that's how it's pronounced. Aristotle argued in De Anima that all sentient creatures share a basic cognitive capacity to perceive the world, retain impressions of it, and recombine impressions into new configurations, what he called fantasia, imagination. A dog, a crow, and a chess grandmaster possess this competency. Aristotle distinguished human beings as categorically different, possessing the capacity to grasp universal abstract concepts, ideas like justice, causation, and the good that cannot be derived from any sensory experience alone. A dog can recognize its owner, but it cannot grasp the concept of ownership. A parrot, in which they actually can, a dog can recognize its owner, but it cannot grasp the concept of ownership. Many animals can, actually. A parrot can reproduce a sentence about fairness, but it has no understanding of fairness. What is the distinction? Can't we simply feed an AI system Webster's definition of fairness and let it work from there? No. Feeding a machine that the dictionary definition only gives it more words to pattern match against. The concept is not in the words. Any child who grasps fairness can apply it correctly to a situation no definition anticipates. And that is true. AI can only produce text that statistically resembles how humans talked about fairness before. Because at the end of the day, it's all programming. So now it comes down to which programming is the correct programming. What is right. And there are some things where, you cannot really give a definite answer to. So to have pretty much AIs or robots or whatever systems, moving about as their own person with this programmed knowledge, that wouldn't really be, in the best interest of things. This is not a gap that more computing power or better training data will close, right? Because it can't close it. That's something that comes with having a spirit, a mind, a will, if you will, which these devils technology cannot have, right? Computer scientist Judea Pearl demonstrated mathematically that no amount of pattern recognition over observational data can substitute for genuine causal inference. The appearance of understanding is not understanding itself. And it is precisely the capacity for genuine understanding, for deliberating about what is good and right, that grounds moral responsibility, which is the only coherent basis for legal personhood. And again, dealing with technology, right? They can't have morals. They can only have, the morals, quote, that they're programmed to have. The problem with the corporate analogy. Proponents of AI personhood often invoke corporate personhood as precedent. Corporations are not natural persons, yet the law treats them as legal persons capable of owning property, entering contracts, and being sued, right? So it's saying, pretty much what's the difference between this corporate personhood versus an AI personhood? Why not extend this pragmatic fiction to AI? The analogy breaks down at accountability. Corporate personhood is a legal convenience built on human moral agency. Behind every corporation is a structured network of natural persons, board members, executives, shareholders who bear fiduciary duties, can be deposed and held liable. That's the main point, and held liable under piercing the veil doctrine, and face reputational and criminal consequences for their decisions. I'm going to search this up actually. AI overview. Piercing the veil doctrine is a legal doctrine where courts disregard a company's separate legal status to hold shareholders, directors, or officers personally liable for corporate debts or misconduct. Right. So again, going into that liability, being able to be held liable, accountability. And face reputational and criminal consequences for their decisions. The corporation is a vehicle for organizing human action, not a substitute. Ohio's HB 469 captures this logic by denying AI legal personhood, prohibiting AI systems from serving as corporate officers or directors, and assigning all liability for AI caused harm to identifiable human owners, developers, and deployers. Labeling a system aligned or ethically trained does not discharge human responsibility. Granting AI legal personhood would shatter this accountability architecture. And an AI person could own intellectual property, hold financial assets, and bring lawsuits, all without a human principal who can be held responsible. Right? So that's pretty much the point. Is that the AI could do these things and, pretty much, as it says, bring lawsuits or whatever, pretty much cause actions that, really should prohibit a certain, repercussion, but it doesn't, because now who does that repercussion go to? No one. This AI is a legal person, or the most you can do is what? Shut it down or whatever. And now I see this as, pretty much Esau trying to, or if something like this was to be passed, right, or to be made legal, that would give Esau, or open the door to Esau, pretty much being able to then have, their robots, their drones, their robotic dogs or whatever to, cause havoc without, being at fault. And that's where things like, Jacob's trouble, right? The heightened tension of Jacob's trouble, the worst parts of Jacob's trouble kick in, right? And what they really did, because that's what Esau really wants. So all this technology that they pushed on the people through the idea of convenience, right? This is helping us do this, helping us do that. It can run faster and do this and that, right? They pushed that on the people, and the people fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker. Next thing you know, everyone's on AIs, everyone's down with the technology advancements, and so on and so forth. But the whole time, this was what Esau really wanted, just to get that technology in the door so they can use it for its real purpose, man, which is to destroy. And we're going to see that very soon. So now let's grab the book of Ecclesiasticus, or Sirach. It's the book of Ecclesiasticus, or Sirach, chapter 12, start here at verse 10. And it reads, "Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness." Right? And we know, dealing with Israel, their main enemy is who? Esau, Edom. But really, dealing with the people, and I'm speaking specifically about over here in America, really, the people, even though they think that their government is for them, it's really not. The American people are the enemy of their own government, right? Little do they know, and that's going to show very soon, because again, here it is, right? The powers that be push this technology as a mean of making life better, but really they're going to use it to make life as worse as it's ever been. Because you got to think, people get mad, when I remember when there was talks about, pretty much a curfew going around, right? And people were getting pissed off, right? I'm a grown ass man, you can't tell me when I gotta go in the house, things of that nature. So imagine where you have robots roaming the city, right, telling you can't do this, you can't do that, or technology just all around, right? A complete, surveillance state watching your every move, and these devils controlling your every move, man. What do you think about a world like that? That's complete hell. But that's the world that these devils are trying to create, and people don't see that, and they're just welcoming, pretty much welcoming that world, because it hasn't got to that point yet, so they don't really know that's what it's getting to. But here it is now, they get mad at a curfew. So imagine then, man. And then dealing with the if these AIs or these robots or whatever have their own personhood, then as we read, that can open the door for what? They might kill, and who's going to be held liable? Shit, you going to be held liable, because what did you do? You probably broke the rules. So whatever they were programmed to do, they did it, and that's on you, right? So that's the dragon, what's the word? The draconian, those are the draconian measures that this world is going to come to, man. For like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness, right? So you can always count on that enemy to be wicked, even if they're hiding it for a moment, right? Which is what this next verse goes into. Though he humble himself and go crouching, Salakia, yet take good heed and beware of him. Why? And thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust hath not been altogether wiped away, right? So like you get unto basically a mirror that you wiped, but the whole time you still have rust under there hidden, which really is that corruption, that evil intent. Set him not by thee, lest when he hath overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place. Neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy feet. And thou at the last remember my words, and be pricked therewith. Right? And this is ultimately what the people are doing. They're letting these devils in the door, and all they need is a foot through the door, man. And they got that foot through the door by promising you something else with a real intent that's to go against you. But as I was saying, this is what's going to lead to the the escalated times of Jacob's trouble. It's the book of Daniel, chapter 12, verse 1. And at that time shall Michael stand up, Michael being the archangel, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, being Israel, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. Right? So again, you have robots with their own likelihood being able to do anything, and no one, pretty much no one getting charged for it, because they have their own likelihood. That's on them. And that opens the doorway for what? For a lot of death, man. A lot of death and zero recompense. And that's why the Lord is going to be the one to recompense these devils, man, because he's the only one that can, and the only one that can do it, in its fullness, in its rightness, to exact the judgment that these devils deserve. The Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai is the only one that can do that. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. Now those being delivered, right, are those who pretty much put their trust in Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. And that's why up here it says Michael shall stand up, standeth for the children of thy people. That's going into only the elect, those who have that faith on Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai in those times, to be protected in these dire times. And we know that really these times are just judgments from the Lord, because going to the book of Ezekiel, the 7th chapter, and it reads, punishment for wickedness foretold. It's the book of Ezekiel chapter 7 verse 1. Now this really was dealing with, or it was also dealing with back then, when you had the Lord pretty much exact judgment over there in the Holy Land on our people, by the way of the different captivities we went into, but also applying it to now. Moreover, the word of the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai came unto me, saying, also, thou son of man, thus saith the Lord Yahweh unto the land of Israel, And the end is come upon the four corners of the land. Now is the end come upon thee, and I will send mine anger upon thee, and will judge thee according to thy ways, and will recompense upon thee all thine abominations. Right? So the Lord, dealing with Israel, is going to pretty much reward them according to their ways. And as we just read, they've been dealing with what? Abominations, iniquity, wickedness. So the Lord is going to exact that righteous judgment on them. And that's what Jacob's trouble is really about. Trouble for Jacob, judgment for the wicked of the nation of Israel. So as we read in Daniel the 12th chapter, those that Michael the archangel stand up pretty much to defend, right, to protect, along with the other angels, you know, and the miracles and, you know, the things that the Lord has play out, that's only for the elect, the righteous of the nation of Israel. Mine eyes shall not spare thee, neither will I have pity, but I will recompense thy ways upon thee, and thine abomination shall be in the midst of thee, and ye shall know that I am the Lord Yahweh. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, in evil, and only evil, behold, is come. And in this come, the end is come, it watches for thee, behold, it is come. Right? So the Lord is saying this evil and only evil is going to come, man. And you know, the who is the most evil, vile person on the planet, right? That's just so happened to be our number one enemy that we are under captivity, you know, in currently. So you know the Lord is finna do a lot of fucking up, man, a lot of judgment at the hand of these devils, right? He likens the wicked unto the sword of the Heavenly Father, you know, built to what? To slay. What? That's the only thing a sword is used for, is to kill, man. And that's what these devils are going to be used for. And that's exactly what they really want this technology to be used for, man. It's like they dress it up, you know, it's like they have a gun in a gift box, right? They dress it up, make it look all nice. They walk in with the gift and they snatch the gun out, and you're cooked. You just let them in, you know? So coming back to here, let's finish up this article. Where were we? Contextually, we can just start here. The result would not be extending rights to a new class of beings. It would be creating a... No, let's actually jump up. Okay, labeling a system aligned or ethically trained does not discharge human responsibility. Granting AI legal personhood would shatter this accountability architecture. An AI person could own intellectual property, hold financial assets, and bring lawsuits, all without a human principal who can be held responsible, right? And again, that goes further beyond pretty much to anything, right? They could shoot someone dead, man, and who's going to be held responsible? No one, because they're their own person. They have their own legal personhood. All without a human principal who can be held responsible. Sophisticated actors could construct chains of AI-owned shell companies that dissolve liability through layers of nominal personhood. The result would not be extending rights to a new class of beings. It would be creating, and you see how they're saying new class of beings, because effectively that's what these devils really trying to do, you know, play God and create their own, you know, being, their own person. The result would not be extending rights to a new class of beings. It would be creating accountability vacuums that benefit who? The powerful humans who deploy AI while insulating them from consequence. You know, so again, pretty much the powerful humans, right? Who are those? You know, those higher up. They would be able to use these AIs to do their bidding and not get, you know, not receive consequences for it. You know, and that ultimate bidding would be to do what, man? Come against Jake. The moral stakes for real people. in which you're going to have the other, you know, Americans, people caught up in it, but it's really judgment for Jake. A deeper moral issue underlies all of this. Legal personhood is not merely an administrative category, it carries normative weight. It signals that an entity has standing to make claims, to be wronged, to bear obligations, extending that status to systems that cannot genuinely deliberate, cannot suffer, and cannot be held morally responsible would dilute the concept of personhood, right? Because what does it mean to be a person, man? And they're trying to, you know, if they were, as it's saying, if they were to pretty much put that label on this technology, that would completely diminish what it means to be a living, breathing, you know, person. To have emotions, to have morals, to have a spirit, to think, you know, so on and so forth. But ultimately, right, and it goes to show you how they really want to do away with personhood, man. They want total control. They want you to think how you know, they want you to think how they want you to think. You know, want you to act how they want you to act. Because this system, this beast system that they're trying to implement pretty much puts them in the seat of gods, man. You know, an artificial gods. That's what they're trying to create themselves to be. And establishing that this system will do just that for them in their eyes, right? But we know that the Lord is going to put an end to that. And cannot be held morally responsible would dilute the concept of personhood in ways that could ultimately harm the humans who most need its protections. Exactly, man. And that's ultimately the goal, to harm the humans who mostly need its protections. And that's why we read here, right, to set him not by thee, lest when he hath overthrown thee, meaning likening overthrown thee to basically getting what they want, you know, likening overthrown thee to having having walked through the door. Once they get in, what do? He stand up in thy place, neither let him sit at thy right hand, or he stand up in thy place, and now they show their real colors. Neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat, and thou at the last remember my words and be pricked therewith. And it's already too late. Right? The technology is already here. You know, the system is already being implemented. You know, all they need to do is pretty much do away with the current system to completely roll in that digital one, man. And that's it. Verse 13, who will pity a charmer that is bitten with a serpent, or any such as come nigh wild beast? Right? So basically saying that's what they get. Who's going to feel bad for someone who willfully does that? You know, that's like, what did you think would happen? So one that goeth to a sinner and is defiled with him in his sins, who will pity? And especially when the Lord has his men bringing out the truth on these devils, and yet you still have those who pretty much trust in them, you know, trust in their works, trust in their technology, you know, and that belief that believe on their technology, man. So when those things turn against you, who's going to pity you? Who's going to feel bad? No one, right? And it's funny because that's exactly what happening too, in a different sense, with those who voted for Trump. Right? We see how that turned out. You know, he's fucking up not even just America, but the whole world. And now those who voted for him, you know, are regretting that. But who will pity a charmer that is bitten with a serpent, man? What do you expect? Especially when you have the truth coming out on them and you choose to pretty much turn a blind eye to it. So one that goeth to a sinner and is defiled with him in his sins, who will pity? For a while he will abide with thee, but if thou begin to fall, he will not tarry. So they're not going to waste time to pretty much overthrow you once they see you slip up. You know, and the people slipped up pretty much allowing this. But at the end of the day, they really didn't have no choice, because it's all the will of the Heavenly Father. An enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips, but in his heart, and that speaking sweetly with his lips is what? Them, proposing all of this through what? Convenience, right? Making life easier, making life better, so on and so forth. But in his heart, he imagineth how to throw thee into a pit. So pretty much how to kill you, how to destroy you, how to bring you down. He will weep with his eyes, but if he find opportunity, he will not be satisfied with blood. And again, the all of this is going to really show when the Lord gives these devils, the go ahead to just go all out, man. If adversity come upon thee, thou shalt find him there first. And though he pretend to help thee, yet shall he undermine thee. Again, that pretending to help thee, that false, sense of help, when really in their mind they know this is all to come against you. But they're not just gonna come outright and say that, because then that brings a fight back from you. They don't want the fight back, or they can't, deal with the fight back just yet. So they take the other approach, pretend to be on your side to get in. Once we get in, then we can show out. He will shake his head and clap his hands. And if adversity come upon thee, thou shalt find him there first. And though he pretend to help thee, yet shall he undermine thee. He will shake his head and clap his hands and whisper much and change his countenance. Right? So basically reveal the real them. But then when the real them is revealed, it's too late. Or when they reveal the real them, it's too late, because the real them is already being revealed. People just aren't listening. So finishing off this article, okay, moral stakes. A deeper moral issue underlies all of this. Legal personhood is not merely an administrative category. Okay, we read that. We have not yet secured the full benefits of legal personhood for all human beings in practice. For the displaced, stateless, and structurally invisible, rushing to extend a contested status to machines while that work remains unfinished would be a profound misallocation of moral and legal energy. And that shows you the mindset of these demons, man. Ready to give rights to technology before people. None of this requires hostility to AI as a technology. AI systems can be powerful, useful, and when properly governed, enormously beneficial. What AI systems cannot be is persons, the states, and that's what people don't understand. This AI, this technology that Esau's been bringing out, that these technocrats have been bringing out, it was never really for the people, man. It was never really for the general populace, but for those with the money, for those, the higher ups. Again, ultimately for the system that they want to bring, that's only going to be beneficial to them, right? In that system, you're going to be looked at as, ant, cattle, just someone, there, not even a life, man, because life already to them is disposable at the blink of an eye. I was about to say blink of a finger, but the blink of an eye, man. So then they're really not going to give a damn. They one of the on the guide stones, right? What was one of their pretty much statutes was to pretty much bring the population down significantly. So they don't give a damn, especially about the average person. So how much more the average Israelite really don't give a damn. What AI systems cannot be is persons, the states passing anti-personhood legislation or preserving something more important, than a competitive advantage, a clear chain of human accountability for every AI action to every AI consequence. when an AI system causes harm, there must always be a human who answers it, right? And that's the main point I'm getting to, right? If AI was to be given this legal personhood, they could cause harm and no one, face a consequence for it. And that's ultimately what it's going to come to, really. When an AI system causes harm, there must always be a human who answers for it. That principle is not a constraint on technology. It is the foundation of a just society, right? And this is where the mindset is wrong, because this is not a just society. So you cannot expect, the pretty much the rules in this society to be fair and just, because the ones who govern this society aren't fair and just. So, and that's why, even let's say if they don't, this doesn't become a thing, AI or these systems never become a legal person, it's going to get to the point where even if they still do harm, no one's still going to be, persecuted for it, because they're not going to give a damn. They're not going to care. That's the spirit that the Lord is going to put on these devils. When all hell really breaks loose. Aristotle taught that law is reason without passion, a framework for coordinating human beings capable of living well together. AI can help us pursue the good life, but it cannot deliberate about what that life requires. So again, right? Yeah, AI probably can, help better things, but that's if it was in the hands of the right people, and it's not. It's in the hands of the wicked. So you best believe it's going to be used to, bring perdition. As states across the country move to codify this distinction, they are doing exactly what legislators exist to do, drawing lines that protect persons, all of them and only them. And we'll see how those legislations hold up. Now, let's grab the other article. Now, just based off the title, you can see how, these two correlate. New bill opens door for killer AI weapons. Now you have these killer AI weapons, and what this is going into is basically the having AI weapons, right, being able to move autonomously, which means, pretty much on their own, not needing authorization to do this or to do that. They can just react accordingly as they see fit. As they're programmed, they can just pretty much do what they want, move on their own, right? Not needing someone shadowing them, right, and things of that nature. They can operate quote unquote at will. So having AI weapons do that, and then on top of them having a legal personhood, what that opens the door for straight chaos, man. That opens the door for a free range culling, right? Again, Jacob's trouble. That's what it's leading to. A newly introduced or a worse part of Jacob's trouble, right? Because we're already in Jacob's trouble, but things have to escalate. A newly introduced U.S. Senate bill would allow the military to deploy autonomous lethal artificial intelligence systems by granting the Secretary of Defense the authority to override its own restrictions, right? So that effectively defeats the purpose of the restrictions. Senate Bill S.4113, the AI Guardrails Act of 2026, introduced March 17th, 2026 by U.S. Senator Elissa Slotkin, D-MI, is being presented as a framework to limit how the Department of Defense uses AI. And remember, not too long ago, the Department of Defense was butting heads with Anthropic, because Anthropic pretty much was against this, the autonomous use, and how dangerous that could be. But the actual text includes a built-in waiver mechanism that enables those same systems to be approved and used under national security justifications. right? So, you know, if they deem a reason justifiable, then they can just do away with all the do away with the waiver. Well, not the waiver, but do away with the restrictions. This means a Pentagon-approved AI system could independently identify and engage targets, making life and death decisions with real-time human input. Right? You couple that with these AI systems having their own personhood. Now you have a killer robot with zero repercussions. You know, and this really goes to show you why scriptures say that it's going to be a time like none ever before, man, and why only, you know, it's going to take angelic power, divine power from Yahweh Ba'ashem Al-Shai, power from on high to survive this. This means a Pentagon-approved AI system could independently identify and engage targets, making life and death decisions without real-time human input, right? And now it opens the question to what programming determines, you know, if it should or should not put someone to death. You know, is it going to try and shoot me if I spit gum on the sidewalk? Is it going to try and shoot me if I litter on the sidewalk? You know, so on and so forth. If I don't have my ID, right, it deems that I'm a legal alien. Like, you know, it's so many ways that it opens the door to so many questions, man. There is no language in that waiver clause limiting where the system can be used, whether targets or foreign, or whether targets are foreign or domestic, right? So they didn't rule out whether targets can be of that land or of the country, right, or not. Why? Because, as I said before, it's like U.S. citizens are enemy of the state, whether they realize it or not, man. Because why else wouldn't you you know, specify the targets? The bill has been, because it's going to be used to kill U.S. citizens as well, man. The bill has been read twice in the Senate and referred to the Senate Armed Services Committee, where it now awaits further consideration. And again, all of this built up to AI, right? This built up to robots. They introduced it to the public. The public fell in love. Next thing you know, everyone's building a damn humanoid robot and things of that nature, right? Getting the public, you know, to get behind these things, all to what? To get it in, you know, to get it through the door, to use it for their real use, man, which is to kill. That's ultimately the use, man, to kill and to subject the people. This means a Pentagon approved, we read that. There is no language in the waiver that waiver clause limiting where the system can be used, whether targets are foreign or domestic. The bill has been read twice in the Senate and referred to the Senate Armed Services Committee, where it now awaits further consideration. The waiver raises questions about how often extraordinary circumstances will be invoked, right? That's the real question. What determines a circumstance as extraordinary to where, you know, they can, you know, do away with the waiver? Who ultimately, or enact the waiver? Who ultimately decides when autonomous lethal force is justified? Exactly. And what meaningful limits, if any, remain once that authority is exercised, right? And this is literally, you know, Terminator, right? With Skynet, they made it pretty much autonomous. They put that online, you know, effectively having its own will, quote unquote, you know, and we see how that turned out. So here you have an image to provide limitations to use. Right. Okay. Waiver authority built into the core restriction. The bill prohibits the use of AI for what? So this is what it prohibits. This is what it does not allow. Launching or detonating nuclear weapons, domestic monitoring or targeting without legal basis, using lethal force through autonomous weapon systems without human oversight. Immediately following that restriction, the bill states the Secretary of Defense may waive the prohibitions for up to 1 year. And so doing away with all of this shit, it defeats the purpose, man. The Secretary of Defense can just waive this shit. The Secretary of Defense may waive the prohibitions for up to 1 year and renew that waiver if extraordinary circumstances affecting the national security of the United States require the waiver, right? And you best believe, if needed, well, these devils will orchestrate an event that is going to be deemed as an extraordinary circumstance, you know, to justify them using this. Again, this was the real purpose of introducing all of this technology. How it works: the decision to authorize autonomous lethal systems is placed with the Secretary of Defense. Waivers last up to 1 year. Waivers can be renewed. Congress is notified after issuance. Notifications may include classified components. The bill requires certification that the system's error rate does not exceed that of human operators performing comparable functions. Operational scope: the waiver applies to development, field deployment, system modification. It also covers changes to mission sets, target sets, operational environments, algorithmic behavior. Each of those changes can trigger continued or expanded authorization under the same waiver structure. Sponsor background: the bill was introduced by Senator Elissa Slotkin, whose background includes CIA analyst, Department of Defense official, acting Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security Affairs. Her professional history is directly tied to the national security institutions governed by the bill. Campaign finance alignment: Slotkin's donor base includes multiple sectors tied to AI development, autonomous systems, and the broader defense tech pipeline enabled by this bill. According to Open Secrets data, top contributors include Alphabet Inc. and Amazon, major AI developers and federal cloud contractors, General Motors and Ford, advancing autonomous and robotic systems applicable to military use, right? Because all of these big companies, corporations, you know, they're all in cahoots. University of Michigan, Michigan State, Harvard, Stanford, key hubs for federally funded AI and defense related research. Kirkland and Ellis and WilmerHale, heavily involved in structuring large-scale federal and defense contracts. The bill authorizes deployment of autonomous, right, in which we said what this was, but I want to get a textbook definition on it. Describes autonomous, this is the AI overview, describes a system, machine, or entity that operates independently, governing itself or acting without direct human control. It implies the capability to make decisions or functions as seen in AI, self-driving vehicles, and automated industrial processes. The term stems from Greek, meaning self-governing or independent. The companies and institutions funding Slotkin are directly tied to building the AI infrastructure and legal frameworks required to support that expansion. The legislation opens the door, and her donor base sits inside, and then opens the door to complete chaos. And her donor base sits inside the ecosystems that stand to operate and profit within it. Bottom line, the legislation places a restriction on autonomous lethal AI systems while granting the Secretary of Defense, currently Pete Hegseth, that demon, right, that devil, the authority to waive that restriction under national security. So you best believe that this shit is getting waived if passed, man, for sure. The waiver is controlled by a single Pentagon official, can be renewed indefinitely, applies to real world deployment, targeting, and system evolution, contains no language limiting where such systems may be used. That effectively does away with every restriction that they put. Congress is notified after the fact, not required to approve. That defeats the whole purpose. The authority to deploy autonomous lethal AI systems sits inside the same section that claims to restrict them. Literally defeats the purpose, man. And that's what I was going into about, not trusting the enemy, right? And how they will tie up something, make it look nice, and give it to you. Whole time it's a load of crap. Here it is. They have this section meant to restrict autonomous AI, but within it, it's unrestricting it. That's it, making it look good, but whole time it's some bullshit. Now let's grab the book of Psalms. Psalms chapter 55. I believe start here at verse 11. Straight, focus on the enemy that approached thee, it's my own equal. It's the book of Psalms chapter 55 verse 20. And it reads, he hath put forth his hands against such, be at peace with him. He has broken his covenant. Right? And dealing with these devils, yeah, they do this, but dealing with this, aspect, it's not that they broken the covenant, but they made it look like something it wasn't. They dressed it up real nice. That goes into the deception that these devils, that is used when dealing with Esau, man. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart, right? And that's literally what that restriction is. The word smoother than butter. Yeah, okay, they won't be able to do this. We're not going to let them do that. We're not going to let them do this, so it won't harm this. But then again, right, given the justified reason, we're going to let them do all of that. So it's like, damn, what's the point? That's just making it look good. So that's to keep people from lashing out. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. Again, what are swords used for? Swords are only used for one thing, and that's to kill. Cast thy burden upon the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Awashai. Who are those that are going to cast their burden upon the Lord? Going all the way back to the elect of the nation of Israel, right? Those who put their trust in Yahweh Ba'ashem Awashai, to ultimately be what? As it reads, and he shall sustain thee. To be sustained in those times of evil, as we read in Ezekiel the 17th chapter, right? In evil, and only evil is come, right? Because the Lord is the one bringing it. But for those who trust in him, let's get the book of John chapter 17, verse 15. We can start here at verse 13. The disciples in the world. And now come I to thee, this is Yahweh Shai speaking, and these things I speak in the world, that they might have my joy fulfilled in themselves. I have given them thy word, which is what? Is truth, the gospel, and the world hath hated them, because they are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. I pray not that thou shouldest take them out of the world, but that thou shouldest keep them from the evil. Right? And the evil being, the wicked Esau and the, their devices, man. All the things that they're going to do to come up against Jake, whether it be deception, whether it be a false doctrine, or whether it be, literally trying to kill, in the times of Jacob's trouble, the guillotines, the robots, so on and so forth. All of it, man. The Lord is praying that the Savior is praying to the Heavenly Father that we are kept, Lord willing we be of that number, are kept from all the evils, man. And that's only going to be the elect of the nation of Israel. Let's grab one more. It's the book of Mark chapter 13 verse 19. And it reads, for in those days shall be affliction, such as was not from the beginning of creation, which the Most High created unto this same time. Right? And then it goes to show you how this is going to happen in our time. Right? This has yet to happen. The things that are happening now, right? Dealing with the technological advancements, you don't see anywhere, in any other time, man. You know, this going back to what point that the articles made, how this is not, you know, pretty much, this is non-fiction, right? This isn't fiction. This isn't sci-fi. This is a real world problem and a real world, you know, thing that we're dealing with. Robots pretty much being given free reign to act on their own, you know. For in those days shall be affliction, such as was not from the beginning of creation, which the Most High created unto this time, neither shall be. And except that the Lord Yahweh by Shem Yahushai had shortened those days. Why? No flesh should be saved. No flesh should be saved. Now these robots aren't flesh, you know. So they would be contributing into that no flesh being saved. As well as, you know, these devils and their nukes and whatever. I believe the small hats, they have something known as the Samson project, something along those lines, where it's effectively a suicide nuke. You know, if we're going down, you're going down with us. That's it, man. So they'd even, you know, destroy themselves as long as they get to destroy everyone else with them. So as it says here, no flesh should be saved, right? If the Lord does not intervene, we're all through. But for the elect's sake, whom he hath chosen, he hath shortened the days. So everything that we see, you know, going on is really leading to the deliverance of the elect of the nation of Israel, as well as the judgment of the Heavenly Father, man. And it's only being that elect of the nation of Israel that is going to get you out of that judgment. There is no other way, right? So finishing off here in the book of Psalms 55, cast thy burden upon the Lord Yahweh by Shem Yahushai, and he shall sustain thee, right? So basically trust the Lord and he will keep thee, he will protect you, right? Actually look into this word sustain. Sustain thee, kawal, to seize, contain, measure, to measure, calculate, to sustain, maintain, contain, to sustain, support, nourish, to contain, hold in, restrain, support, endure, right? So the Lord is going to pretty much, you know, hold up his elect through the perils, you know, allow them to endure, give them the spirit in order to do that, provide them with the protection and the things in order to endure, to be supplied, to contain, hold in, endure, to contain, to sustain, endure. He shall never suffer the righteous to be moved, but thou, O God, shall bring them down into the pit of destruction. Dealing with who? The wicked. Bloody and deceitful men shall not live out half their days, but I will what? I will trust in thee, right? And it's only those who trust in the Lord that have a chance out of this, man. And that's why we preach to repent and turn back to Yahweh by Shem Yahushai. You know, it's all love, telling you the only way to be saved from destruction that, you know, the likes of the world has never yet to see. Let's actually close it all on here. It's the book of Jeremiah, chapter 16, verse 14. Subtitle reads, the Most High will restore them. It's the book of Jeremiah, chapter 16, verse 14. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord Yahweh by Shem Yahushai, that there shall no more be said, the Lord Yahweh by Shem Yahushai liveth, that brought up the children out of Israel, out of the land of Egypt, right? Because that was what? A great deliverance that pretty much made the name of the Lord Yahweh by Shem Yahushai and established fear in that name on the earth, right? But for a period of time. But dealing with the deliverance we're going to receive now in our time, it's pretty much going to make that look like child's play, you know, and we see why. Look at the things that we're going to be dealing with in this time, man. If it's going to be a time of persecution like never before, the Lord is going to show his power like never before. So much so that, as we're reading here, you know, it will no longer be said, the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. And that's still spoken about today. But the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Awashai liveth that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north, being where? North America, over here in the Americas, man. Specifically dealing with America. And from all the lands whither he had driven them, which is pretty much all the world, right? Because we were scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. And he will bring them again into their land that I gave unto their fathers, right? So at the deliverance, the Lord is going to gather his people and bring them back to their land, which lets you know that those already in the land claiming to be the people of the Lord sure as hell ain't bringing them there. So that's not, you know, they don't fit this prophecy, right? So clearly they can't be the people, you know. But point is that the Lord is coming to show his power like never before, man. And you can either be on the good side of that or the bad side of that. You know, I know which side I want to be, and I know which side you brothers and sisters, you know, believers out there want to be on too. You know, but that was pretty much it, right? Going to show you the real intent of these devils, which we already know, right? And it's to basically use this technology for evil. But the Lord's will, right? We have faith that the Lord is going to protect us from all the evil. So with that being said, once more, I would like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Ruach HaKodesh, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the hopeful elect.